gain control over my time, over my well-being, and of course it was impacting me because I could only come to school Monday, Tuesday, like I said, because she'll be in nursery, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was just me at home, and it wasn't working because I'm a kind of person that I need focus when I'm doing anything. Once I hear mommy, I lose my train.
Welcome to Academic Village, and this is PhD Stories Unfiltered. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at parenting while doing a PhD. And today, I have a guest with me, Taibat Hussain, who is a second-year PhD student at the School of Global Development at the University of East Anglia. And she currently researches gender-based violence and online safety among secondary school students in Nigeria. And we are going to be looking at what it means to juggle nappies and narratives, night feeds, and feed work as an academic researcher. And if you've probably been following her, you will see she's been sharing her experience of parenting through a blog series on LinkedIn titled Thesis and Toddler. So we're going to be digging deep into that narrative in this episode. So every PhD student has a journey and they have a story behind that journey, why they want to do a PhD. So can you tell us what inspired you to do a PhD?
That's a typical interview question, especially when you're looking for funding. And I think for me, it's always been a childhood dream. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but not the route my parents was thinking, because they wanted me to be a medical doctor. But I knew from an early age that I wanted to be an academic doctor. Perhaps I'd read about it somewhere because I was an avid reader growing up. So it has always been a childhood dream. And it's something that I carried along with me, knowing that that would be the full stop in my educational pursuit. So naturally, after I was done with my BSc, I progressed to MSc, and I knew PhD would come. So it was a matter of when. I've always wanted to do it. And I think it also now, it made sense for me to do a PhD from my work, because I work at the intersection of education, gender, and all of that. And I realized that a lot is missing when it comes to research, when it comes to data, especially when you're thinking about children in communities that I come from. So I wanted to contribute to that space, because it's often a space where a lot of people don't go into, because it takes a lot to research, it takes a lot to do a PhD. So I think that came secondary to why I wanted to do a PhD.
So the personal and the societal ambitions or inspirations. Thank you very much. So what moment in your PhD did you realize that it's going to be a parenting journey?
From the very beginning, because I'd actually planned to do my PhD immediately after my master's degree. But unfortunately, I didn't get the funding, because that's also another thing. Funding is a major issue. And it took me 3 years to get funding. And that for me was 4 years. 3 years to get a PhD was 4 years in marriage in a way. So when I didn't get a PhD, something also, I got pregnant and then I had my baby. So I knew this is and toddler tales for me. But it wasn't in plan, but then that was what happened.
So that's really interesting. So what does a typical day look like for you as a parent and a PhD student?
So I think I would go back to when I first started, because things are sort of changes. There's no typical day that's the same. But when I started, I had to plan ahead, because I knew my toddler needs to be somewhere for me to come, especially because when you first start PhD, there's a series of things you need to come to school for, orientations and all of those things. So I need to have a plan for my daughter. And because she was young, she couldn't start school yet. So I had to think about nursery and all of that. So typically a day for me would be Monday, Tuesday is a typical day for me. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I go with the flow because she's not in nursery. But typically Monday, we wake up 6 a.m., get out to nursery before 8, because the nursery is 8 to 6. And then I come to school, do the normal work, meetings and whatever. And by 4 o'clock, I need to leave. Regardless of whatever was happening, I need to leave at 4 o'clock, and then I'll get home, then go pick her up, and then my day is whatever she wants it to be, then going from there. So I didn't have much control over it. And also because when you first resume PhD, a lot of things is happening in there. And most of also the social part of things happen in the evening. So I missed all of them. I felt bad in a way, but then...
As you said, you don't get that social activity.
No, you don't.
Because most part of that life had been gone. And when you're available, things are closing already. That's the bit. So have you at any point have had to adapt to your research work based on your parenting needs or responsibilities? Is there any point where you think, oh, I know consciously we think about these things, we'll make decisions, we think about, is this going to impact my family? Is this going to impact my son or daughter? How is it going to impact my partner? So we put all of those factors into consideration when we think about our research or what kind of project can we take on. So has there been any point in your PhD life that you're like, okay, yeah, this is really critical and I have to take this into consideration?
And I think also because I was very honest, I'm an honest person. I don't try to say, to pretend or say, I can do everything. So I know my limits, and I also have a boundary that I've set. So when of course, it was impacting me because I could only come to school Monday, Tuesday, like I said, because she'll be in nursery. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was just me at home. And it wasn't working because I'm a kind of person that I need focus when I'm doing anything. Once I hear mommy, I lose my train and all of that. So it was really hard, but then I pushed on. Then I realized that if I continue this way, I will meet up with my probationary period. My confirmation will suffer. So I think the first decision was to think outside. What can I do? And it might seem like I don't have a partner. I do have a partner and I do have a supportive partner. But also remember that I'm doing a PhD in a foreign country, and my partner also has his life. He has things going on for him, so he couldn't be there when I started at October, like I started. So it was really I struggled, and he also knew, so he actually came down in December, and he helped with a lot of things. And I saw how things changed. And I went back to him, and we need to talk about this. I've never been enjoy the period he was around. I felt like myself. I was less frustrated. I was more happy. I was smiling. I was even playing more with my daughter, more than I normally would, because I was just in a good mood. And I had to tell him that this is not going to work. What should we do? And it was like, I cannot be here, you know that. And I cannot say you should stop your PhD, you also know that. So what can we do? So I felt like I could probably bring somebody from my home country to help at least within the period of my confirmation so that I can focus. And we decided to have my sister come because I didn't want my mom to come because she won't be able to do the kind of work I want her to do, like care of the child, take her to nursery. The nursery is like 20-minute walk from their house, and she's not that fit to do all of those things. And of course I had applied for my sister and they didn't give her the visa. So that's also another thing to consider. It's another thing to say, I want to bring help from home. It's another thing for the plan to work for the government to give them visa and all of that. So it didn't work out. And the next option was for her to go back with her dad. So it was really hard at that time. It was a hard decision, but I knew I wasn't going to meet up if she didn't go, or if I don't have help. It was just plain. So she had to live with her dad, and that was really hard, but that also allowed me more time to fast track what I was doing. So that's how it sort of impacted my work in a way.
I had similar experience in terms of, and I'm not going to say similar, but similar but different in a way. But I mean, we are going to have it different because I'm a man, I'm a husband, and you are a mom. And when my son comes to say, Baba, that distraction is also probably working, and then, or you're in a meeting and it's trying to ask you, where's my toy and all that. Son is like, okay, who is that? So you have that everyday reality of being a parent as a PhD, and you intend on having a partner or someone who is available to be there to be able to support that process. It's difficult when you shift that dynamics of being a male where you have a wife who is able to support you. But at the same time, when I my third year, when I was trying to write my thesis, I've gone for data collection. I'm going to come back to that period of going away for a period of time into one lungu, trying to collect data, and then leaving your family, whatever situation they are. So I want to intern my experience of trying to seeking help when you desperately need it to get things done, because time is dictatorial, and during the PhD it is time. I mean, the PhD itself is time bound. You have some deliverables, especially if you are funded, the pressure is high again. So you have to keep things moving, and even if your family depends on that funding, it becomes a lot complicated again, because that's the lifeline of the family. So you want to protect it in any way possible, even if that means neglecting or not being able to be there for the family as you want to, because so it's more like a trade-off relationship, as you say. So in my case, I had a second son. That was third year into the PhD. Interesting bit. And that was when I started writing my thesis. At that point, I was going to get this thesis done by the end of the year. And we had a baby first month of the year. So I don't know what spoiler of a plan would that be. Just think, I mean, I haven't been through that process in the first place. I knew it was coming. And then adding that to the PhD, it's not going to be easy. So not on me or my wife. So it's going to be very journey. So as PhDs, we're not the only one experiencing this tight deadlines or challenges or whatever face or flavor it is. Our families, our partners are taking those beats. And then we thought I was able to get my mom to come and support through the process. And she came to augment, not replace, but just support that process while I'm not there or being able to give that optimum. So I was able to do some work alongside. I mean, even though the pace was slow, but I was able to at least get some things done, take the weekend off, or do a bit. So that's it. But then people be asking, why not take parental leave or maternity or paternity leave as a PhD student? But this dynamic is different. This context we are discussing, we are both international students, and that means it's a very different. We're not working PhDs. That's also a lot different experience of people that are juggling work, parenting, and PhD. But in our case, we're juggling parenting and PhD. But yes, we got funded for our program, so we're funded to do a certain piece of research. But that means even though you're allowed to take annual or parental leave, then you start asking yourself, if I take this leave, what happens when I come back? So that's the gate. And if you think about you going on any leave because you want to. Okay, but I think I did probably a week or two just to get things out of the way. Then after that, I resumed back into the work and then started writing. So that's another bit of you. Also tried to get someone to able to mop up those needs, but it wasn't possible. So that's another bit that we really need to put out look at in terms of what will be your reality when you start up journey. Are you able to get someone? Do you have your support system around? Are they able to help you to walk through these demands and all that? So people say, yes, not that bad. It's cool. Sometimes there are some glimpses of hopes, rewarding moments or experiences. So as a parent, what has been the most rewarding part of being a parent and doing a PhD?
For me, I think it's knowing that I'm also doing this PhD for my daughter. The work I'm doing is going to benefit her in the long run. So I'm doing it for the money girls. You said it, I'm looking at gender-based violence in schools, particularly girls' experiences, and how you can, what are their experiences like, and what can be done to make schools inclusive and safe. So in a way, whatever I'm doing is going to have a ripple effect on her experience. So that bit I carried with me. And I think another thing I carried with me is the fact that when I started, she was young. You just clocked 2 months starting my PhD. So I felt that was a time she wasn't too keen on me. I don't know how to put it, but it was much easier for me to let her go with her dad in a way, because I know she's not that, doesn't really understand what is going on at that moment compared to now. Now it's a different dynamic because she's older, she knows I'm not around, she keeps asking and all of that. So that's really rewarding for me because I know what I'm doing has an end date. And it's also something that is going to benefit her in the long run. And it also helps that she's also quite young in a way, and she will use that against me later in life compared to me living maybe 5-year-old or 6 years old. That's super.
You start questioning yourself of, why am I doing this? And people able to understand, especially the kids, to understand, okay, this is why Baba is doing this.
No, people will not understand you. Sorry to cut you. But people are not going to understand. That's just one thing I've learned. Those that needs to understand are two people: your partner, your husband, your wife, and the kids. Those are the people. And every other person thinks I was crazy going for a PhD.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. I've also, even within the family, friends, even siblings.
What are you doing?
What? I mean, you cramping, just packing books here and there, and then you think it's life. No, it's not. Go find something. When are you going to finish? And then you have that question. Even when you're trying to explain what you're doing, it doesn't make any sense in most cases. There's only a few people, as I said, those that your immediate family, those that actually gets this is why it is important to. And then I tell my son, I'm going to the university. I'm going to the universities. He's had university probably almost every day. He's had universities. What's this guy doing going here or screening all day, reading and all that? So always speaking to people, strange people on the internet. What is he doing? So just everyday realities are there. And as in terms of rewarding moment for me around, because I don't know, I would have been miserable as a PhD student without a supportive or empowerment kids that laugh. I mean, those things, those moments too, sort of
counts.
Give you that. Yes, I've got. And again, you have them as reasons why you need to keep going. So you don't want to fail them as well. So that's all. So if they are there, reminds you of why you need to keep going, why you're stepping out every morning to go and meet that reviewer too and say, there is less attention paid on. I mean, we need to pay attention is the well-being dimension of being a parent as a PhD. So it's less discussed when we look at mental health or mental well-being of parents, the number of stressors you get in PhD. Is it the deadline? Is it the writing? Is it funding? And every other things that comes along that process of the doctoral journey. And how does that impact mental health or your well-being? So can we look at that bit and see how have you been able to manage that process of staying sane?
Everything.
Amidst the chaos, or beauty of the chaos.
I think for me, personally, I felt like there's not much support being a PhD student and also being a parent. To be honest, I didn't find the right support. And that's just like a personal experience. And when I'm talking, I didn't find the right support, I'm talking institutional. Things that you would love your institution to provide for you. And of course, they're like the general or walk-in sessions, talk to people session, but they are not really designed to cater for PhD student with parenting PhD student or whatever you want to call it. So I feel like I couldn't really relate to all of those services they're offering because it's not solving my reality. So what I decided to do personally for myself was to create a boundary. And this was how it worked. Monday to Friday, I'm going to do my PhD. On my weekends, regardless of whatever is going on, I'm not going to do anything PhD related. For me, that was really so helpful. It was so helpful because it allowed me to gain control over my time, over my well-being, and also to do things. Even with my daughter, and it wasn't easy. Weekends was a great time for us to explore. We do things, we cook, we go out, we go to the library. It's just it was really nice and refreshing to get out of the PhD. So it was non-negotiable for me. I don't care what is happening. And sometimes I feel guilty, like I'm not doing enough as a PhD student, because they make you feel like PhD, you have to it has to consume you in a way. So, but it was non-negotiable for me. And also another thing is, like you mentioned it, the emotional support, having a partner. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how important that is, because you need to run to somebody, you need to voice out. I'm sure my husband would have his own perspective of this PhD because he started with me. We are doing it together, but it's just not gonna get a degree, but we're doing it together. So it's more like a therapy and all of, because I rant and he knows what he needs to say. Don't tell me, just listen. And so that really helped a lot.
I mean, for the supervisors that are watching, you need to have someone to report your supervisors to.
Exactly.
You've had a very terrible meeting, demanding, asking for this and
every month,
and then you need to go home, and that's what partners do.
Yes, and I also feel that it gets overwhelming and your mental health will suffer. It's the reality of you being a PhD, but also what really works for me is also being able to stand up for myself. And I think because as international students, we might feel like you don't want them to see us on serious, or you don't want them to, and also we are not used to standing up for ourselves back home. When your supervisor lecturer says something, you just want to do it, even at your own well-being. But here, I think I was quick. It also helps that you've schooled there before. So I was able to, my supervisor say some things, I'm able to be real with them. What's possible, what's not possible. Even to the tiny details of fixing meeting, it has to be Monday, Tuesday. Because it has to work for me. I wouldn't say, oh, I'll come in when it doesn't work for me. So I think all of those things really help me in a way to navigate the first years of it.
Brilliant. I think you're right about being a good supervisor. Is listening, understanding who you are, what your needs are as well. I remember most times I like to come in and have an in-person meeting with my advisor, but then when it's practically impossible to do that, we just let's do this on Teams, and then we have that, and I leave my door open. My son will come in, excuse me, I'll take care of him, what do you want, what do you need, and then we'll settle that, he's gone, we're back in the meeting. So that's those realities are there. You're not, your family life is not just a backdrop, something, it's part of you, it is who you are, and you have to let them realize that, okay, this is what I'm currently in, and this is how this will shape my needs. So you have to be articulate, be clear about what your needs are and how this can be taken care of during the PhD process. And I think every institution would also have those accommodations of, okay, yes, as a parent, and I want to come to the racial and gendered dynamics of doing PhD experience. Interesting that we have this contrasting positions or narratives of male parenting PhD, and then I think anyone watching this would definitely see how perfect this dynamics is. So it's not just so we're able to bounce things around and see, okay, from a perspective. So most likely, in most cases, most international PhD students that I've met, 50% of them are married or have parents, or have parents with families. Some are kids, some have no kids. And then you get this bit of the extra reality. And compared to other demography of PhD students you see around, most likely they're still married, non-parenting, as we used to say. And then it's different for that reality is different for them. But for me, as a man or a father of the house and doing a PhD, my PhD is relied on my funding. And I'm liking two things. Number one, you're not able to work as an international student. You can't work more than 20 hours. So you're limited on the amount of hours you can work. So even if you want to work to augment whatever funding you're getting, because the funder had pegged that money to survive, let me use survive now, survive just you as an individual. Even when they tell you they are family allowance, it's just probably one-off payment. And when they add it, it's not even enough for
It's not
for whatever you need.
It's not.
There's a constant demand of you having to continuously finance or get money to get things going for your family. So you don't have that luxury because you're 20 hours restricted in terms of work you have to do. Another thing is your time. So you lack time and also lack that financial strength. So in most cases, you are lacking in those two. Then how do you navigate this? So that's the sort of the traumatic experience of not being available. Miserably poor as a PhD student, because you're still considered a student in a way, working like 24/7. So but this is a reality for most international PhD students compared to if you're home, you have your support network, not limited on the hours you can work, and then you can move things around and all that. So that's another bit that I think we also want to tease out. So from your perspective as a mom, as a mother, and then doing a PhD, and how have you been able to navigate the issues of finance? Has that impacted on conferences? Have you had to decide on, is it to pay for nursery or to pay for conference?
I've not even got to that bit. So I also think it might be because it also depends on the age of the children that you've got. I think older kids would, in a way, make things easier in a way, because in the UK they have access to free school and all of that. So but when you're talking about under 4, and I think most of our experience is with under 4, and they started their PhD. So she's not able to start school yet, because then she was 3 years. And and I talked to my husband before, like, you are not here, and I need to also be in school some days. How do we go about this and all of that? So I was like, oh, no problem, we can go to nursery. I think he said that without realizing. And also myself, because I've never checked it before, I didn't have a reason to check a nursery fee or cost and everything. And oh no, it's ridiculous.
Untouchable, let's say.
No, it's untouchable. It's so expensive. It's so expensive. I felt like no wonder people don't want to have children in this country. That was it for me. Because imagine having to pay nursery fee until your child is 4.
Imagine then having to do that while you're doing a PhD.
Again, so for me, it's not. Then I dig further thinking, oh, can I get what's available for her and all of that. So I got to know that even 3 years, she can do 15 hours a week or something. And the 15 hours a week is not going to work for me.
That's probably 3 hours per day.
I won't be able to do anything in school. It doesn't make sense. So I decided to augment it with an extra 15 hours. With an extra 5 hours. I could not afford 5 hours was costing me £300 a month.
Let alone 15.
Exactly. The 5 hours was £300 a month. So that makes 20 hours. So she's able to go full day from Monday, Tuesday. And who is paying for it? My husband had to pay for it. Because I'm a PhD student, my stipend is already going to accommodation. Because if you're a family, you can't just get any accommodation. You need to get an accommodation that fits children and that's costlier and all of that. So all my stipend, about 75% is already going for accommodation and rent. And then the other one, I also have needs. As a PhD student, you get books, you get software, you have stuff. So he was sending error and I was converting to pay for it. So it's finance bit again is something you have to think about if you're coming in with your kids and family, and it's a lot of money. And also, even not just the nursery fee, to bring them in, and I'm talking if you're in the UK, you also have to think about the IHS and visa. The cost of IHS for 5 years is running £3,000. So those are it also has its
1,000. I'm sorry, 5,000 plus now.
Oh no, so, 5 years.
So brilliant. And let's come back to the institutional factor, institutional part of this conversation. This is at micro level, and at a macro level, what do you think generally is lacking from institutions we have international PhD students that are parenting, or say general parenting PhD community? How is that so unique? What do you think institutions should be doing, or are currently doing that's not working, apart from this well-being issues? You need more general sense of institutional support.
Disclaimer, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
And I feel institution needs to start treating PhD students as staff or colleague, not just in a form of tokenism, because then they'll be like, oh, you're part of your, but they need to really intention and meaningfully consider PhD student as staff, and also sort of make available to them things like maybe subsidizing nursery in a way, and this benefit that can actually ease. And it could be something that you might need to apply for. It could be something that's maybe discretionary, even as a start. Case by case, you consider how can we really support this person as our staff. But I feel like even university sees PhD student as money making. Machine, and that relationship is
transactional,
and it's not beneficial, because your experience is supposed to be really positive. And when you come in, of course there might be that, and I think the problem is even attaching student, because when you attach student, you're making them think that student does not have family. Your student is your own, you are single. So I even do not like PhD student. I tend to use PhD researcher. So personally, I don't even like that student. So I think as institution needs to really consider, think about PhD researcher as more than student, and try to. Another thing also is them putting in place structure that can ease our lives. And an example, like I think I've already said this before, is making space in the library for students with family. And it's feasible. It's been done before. I don't want to mention any university, but even in this UK, I've been to a university that actually have family rooms in the library, and it's bookable. So it's not like you're saying dedicate the whole library to family, but just having 4 bookable rooms, it's okay. And then people can book according to their need and time. And that sort of helps. If I need to be in school, I know I can still bring my child, because they sort of have a playground, a library, something to keep the children engaged while you also work on your system and all of that. I think that is something that they could look at, sort of democratize institutions.
You've summarized this feeling that we seem to be getting, that academia is not family friendly. And from the start, as a PhD student, trying to get indoctrinated or get inculcated into that culture of, see, choose academia or you choose a family, you have to decide. And it's even tougher or even more difficult for parenting women than men. The lifestyle or the reality of doing a PhD fits being a male. It supports or reinforces the male. It's an exclusion, and it's a very different conversation we might be having on how does being a male or female shape who get to work from the PhD system. And I don't think that's the focus of this podcast. But the reality is you have those, we've been able to tease out those differences across these conversations we've had about why you might experience it differently from the way I'm experiencing it. So now let's look at writing and visibility. So what motivated you as a parent to start journeying your experience as a PhD student experiencing online? What was that thing that said, okay, I think I need to let people know how messy behind the scene of this process of parenting and PhD at the same time?
I think for me, it's 2 things. First is I needed an outlet. Of course, my husband is there, but I just felt like this is bigger than even me talking to my husband. I needed an outlet to write out. I needed an outlet to where people can actually engage with it, where people can actually also share their experiences. And also because people tend to make being a mother so easy, and I don't like that bit. I feel like there is something about, look at her, she's a woman, she's a mother, she's a career, and they make it sound so easy. It's not. So I think for me, it's this is and Toddler tales, it's very raw. I don't schedule it. I don't write it in advance. I write it as it comes. So whatever I wrote is from what has really struck me that month. So I wanted to be real, and I wanted to be vulnerable. And I also wanted to be like sort of record where people, I've had a lot of people come to me to say, oh, thank you for this newsletter, that it's really helpful, because it shows the reality of being a woman. It shows the reality of being a PhD student. And it sort of sets your own expectation. Like you're looking to go into PhD, or that this that can help. And also, I think the father, I'm being honorable with it. There's also a case, I was on a group, and there are a lot of people going through this, but they don't even say it out. They make it look so easy. And then there's this lady who just got a PhD. She just gave birth. And she's been looking for this PhD for a long time. And then the baby is there. And she was in a dilemma. She was like, came to say, oh, advise me. And people were like, oh, don't leave your child. And I was like, what's going to make you happy? That was my question. What's going to make you happy? This is something you've been praying for. She prayed for it. I know, because for years you've been looking for it. That means you prayed for it. And for you to have it, that means Allah wanted. He wants you to have it. Because that's my train of thought. It's not going to be easy. You don't say it's easy. Leaving your child is not easy. When I left my daughter, I knew almost every day I was going to my husband. And he asked me, do you want that to come? And I said, it's not like that. But I just, that's the truth. So that's just the truth. So when she was like, people are saying don't leave, the child is small, they want to be a bitter parent, because that's also another thing. I think what affected some of us is because our parents or our mothers they sacrificed a lot in a way that they became bitter. Do you want to be the bitter mom that you'd be like, oh, it's because of you I didn't do this, it's because of you I didn't do that? So have a talk with your husband. If he feels like he's able to be there when you are not there, then you can go in first, and then you can work at how to apply for them and then bring them in. But if you say you want to leave this because of society, will be the one to blame you later on if you don't have anything to fall back on. So I think my newsletter is also an outlet for me personally, and also a way to keep record of my PhD journey, and also a conversation starter. And also, if it's useful, maybe you can pick one or two things that's useful.
So I'm going to hyperlink that, and you can read the previous episodes of PhD parenting stories that she's been sharing. I think that's giving you academic identity or within the community of PhD, and then starting the conversation. And that also ignited this beat that we're having now. I want to ask you, what's that one piece of advice you would say give to someone who is about to start a PhD and while raising a child, and they have those two going on? Is there anything sort of you think, okay, this is shareable? I mean, there's no one way to look at this thing, but is there anything that you think you should could work as a tip for anyone?
I think for me, it's give yourself grace, to be honest. And I'm also talking as a woman. We don't give ourselves grace. We don't give ourselves grace to say, I'm tired. I can't do this alone, or I can't do this anymore, or I need help, or I need support. So when you start to give yourself grace, you start to be honest and truthful to yourself. And that's one thing you really need when you're doing a PhD. So when you get to a point where you're tired, you're able to close your book and sleep. When you get to the point where you feel like you need to talk to somebody, and it's really, to be honest, it just makes your life much more easier, and things are a bit easier for you. And also the grace also extends to also relating with your cohort. That was really helpful. I didn't mention it throughout, but there are things I could not read because I did not have time. But I was able to reach out to the PhD student that doesn't have family. It was so helpful. So she put me through everything I could not read. So for me, it's also the grace of, oh, I don't want her to think about me. I don't giving myself grace is about asking for help. There was also a time I had to come in and I had my child with me. Giving yourself grace is knowing that there's no other way. And you asking, I had to call one of them, be like, are you in school today? Can you just sit with her for me for this 1 hour? So all of this is me saying that it's good to be a superwoman, but it's much more important to give yourself grace in the journey, because it's a long journey and you're going to get exhausted. You're going to get tired. You must be real and be honest with yourself about it.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So lastly, how do you define success for yourself as a parent and as a scholar? So what are those in the last few years now? What would you say this was?
I don't know how to, and it's also okay if you don't know, but it's just that I've not really thought about it. I do keep track of my wins.
I think what I'm trying to get at is, how does this two goals help you shape the way you look at success, the way you're able to think, okay, or even think of progress, as you just said about grace now. Be able to do things gracefully. How are these things? How do you come to define that success as a product of not just you being scholarly, but also being parenting a PhD? So you allow yourself to give yourself that credit that I'm a parent. I have a PhD colleague who is also a parent, and she used to tell me that, do you know that our realities are different from what our PhD students? And it didn't really sink until a very long time. And I was thinking, okay, this is actually what she meant about that. When you are able to write a paper the time it takes to get that through is quite different for someone who is non-parent. So you have to be able to give yourself that huge credit of that huge mark. Like, yes, I've actually done something that looks insurmountable. So I think that's what I was getting at about how are you able to infuse the understanding of doing extra to do the ordinary.
I think for me, it's also things that makes me happy. As long as that thing makes me happy, it counts as success. And what I've done since starting my PhD is sort of have a bingo. And me having a bingo, there's the personal, there's the career, there's the family, and just writing things and then seeing it in a sheet or in a single paper, and then being realistic with all of these things. There's I'm going to publish 2 papers, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do So it sort of guide me not to listen to the noises, because to be honest, as a parent, you might feel left behind, especially if you have a circle of overachievers. To be honest, if you have a circle of overachievers, and you might feel like you're lagging behind them. So when I look at my board and I'm like, achieve that, I just say, so for me, it's about setting that goal for myself and being realistic. And it's not just professional. I also have career. I also have family. Family is more like spending more time with you. You have to be very deliberate and intentional. So if I'm able to spend more time with my daughter, if I'm able to achieve this, it's also success for me. So I think you have to define it across these dimensions and be realistic with what is achievable and what is not achievable. And when you have that, it sort of guides you. That's your success blueprint, regardless of my friends, being.
Now we're getting into the quick fire session. So I'm just going to ask you a question, and then you don't need to think about it through as a PhD. But just your best answer or your best guess, depending on how it is. So, toddler tantrum or thesis review meeting, which one is more stressful?
Thesis review meeting. Always.
Okay, I think we now agree that we have something that is more stressful than parenting as a PhD. Yeah, and I think that's also okay. Is there anything as a parent that's any moment within parenting that sort of inspires your research thinking or giving you that sort of inspiration? You're doing something and then like, okay, yes, that's what I've been thinking all day.
I wouldn't say directly, but sometimes when she does, when she's more like oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I just sort of relate it back to the student that I work with, like that I'm going to work with in my PhD. I'm like, you are lucky, you're lucky, because the reality is quite different. So maybe those are like the bits of inspirations.
I mean, sometimes I like to read with my son. He likes to read as well. So he's picked up that reading culture from me doing a PhD. So that's I think, I don't know if that's just coincidental or just an isolated case, but I realized that he's drawn to books because he's been around the whole time. He's been around me doing a master's or doing a PhD. So it's all time that kind of environment. So, and again, when I read his book, sometimes I see some things that I think this is
gonna work.
Oh yeah, this is what I've been thinking about the whole day. And then you get that moment of something that is not related to the PhD, but it's giving you clarity on the PhD. So those are, also watch out for those moments as well. So deadline or bedtime?
Oh, bedtime.
What comes first?
No, bedtime. Bedtime first.
One word to describe doing a PhD as a parent?
I would say interesting, because it's there's the good, there's the bad. So perhaps saying interesting it's more in between.
So interesting is that one-stop shop word that you could use to describe whatever is happening in the PhD process. So the bad, the good, and the gripping or the grizzling part of the journey. Just use interesting. Interesting is fine. You don't have to explain it. Some people might get it, some might not get it. Yes, I think that's a very interesting word to
use to describe an interesting journey.
Yeah, so an interesting word to describe. So, thank you very much for coming, and this has been illuminating. Being able to see someone share their experience of parenting, and it also reminds anyone watching or listening that it is possible. People have done it before. People are doing it. And then you just need to find that balance, that rhythm, that routine that works for you and your child or children and your family. Be there for each other. Try to, communicate the reason why you're doing this. Be clear to yourself why you guys need this. And then be able to, and as you've shown that everyone needs a pocket of support here and there to be able to get through. It could be in the institution, it could be out of the university, depending on where you find the support.
Yeah.
And then universities do have a lot of work to do in supporting parenting PhD students, and not tokenistic one size fits all sort of policy on parenting PhDs. So thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Academic Village, and then I will see you on the flip side. Thank you.